Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been too busy doing an interview with Xu Xiaolan, a Hong Kong businesswoman who was unfortunately framed by the CCP and sentenced to 11 years in prison, and speaking at Columbia University about my personal experiences of suffering persecution in China. So I only did one new video on current events in China. In fact, a lot of important things have happened in China these past 2 weeks, politically, economically, and militarily. So let's talk about them today. First, politics. The most strikingly unusual thing that happened was that at the so-called National Day reception for the 25th anniversary of the founding of the CCP regime, the people who appeared to the left and right of Xi Jinping were former Premier Wen Jiabao and former chairman of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Li Ruihuan, and pictures from the scene show Xi Jinping and Wen Jiabao talking and laughing in a very friendly atmosphere. Anyone familiar with Chinese politics knows that both Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan are considered reformers and relatively open-minded. Moreover, Wen Jiabao has repeatedly emphasized the importance of political reform on various occasions, opposed returning to the Cultural Revolution path, and stated that without political reform, all the achievements made through economic reform would be lost. Xi Jinping, on the other hand, is hell-bent on going back to the Cultural Revolution. So the fact that this time Xi Jinping had Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan, who had long since retired, make a high-profile appearance at the National Day reception is seen by many China observers as a sign that Xi Jinping has already lost some of his power and has had to compromise with the pro-reform wing of the party. Some even believe Xi Jinping will hand over power after the next CCP Congress in 2027, and some have already begun to speculate on who will be his successor. On the economic front, you may have heard about the CCP's so-called economic stimulus package and the wild ride of China's stock market from 2,689 points all the way up to 3,674 points in just 9 days. So a 9-day rise of nearly 37%. So what is the truth behind this big move and the stock market's crazy rise? Let's talk about this more specifically later. On the military front, everyone might have seen that the CCP has just conducted massive military exercises around Taiwan, and the military tension on the Korean Peninsula also seems to be at a hair-trigger tension. Hair-trigger state. The South Korean military has stated that North Korea has demolished the Inter-Korean Liaison Railway. How should we view these developments? Let's start with politics. There are two opposing views on whether Xi Jinping's power is secure or not. One of the two views, which I have already talked about earlier, is that Xi Jinping has had his power cut or divided. And the High-profile reception given to Chinese Premier Li Qiang on his recent visit to Vietnam has also been cited as one of the evidence. Of course, there are other things that people noticed, such as Xi Jinping's absence from some important events and the purging of some officials considered close to Xi Jinping, or even those in the military and so on. However, sources from within the CCP system say that Wen Jiabao, Li Ruihuan, and other CCP elders attended the reception not because Xi Jinping compromised with them, but rather because they were forced by Xi Jinping to come out and show their support. Former Peking University professor Yuan Hongbin said that Xi Jinping is implementing spy-based governance. He has ordered the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection and the National Supervisory Commission to increase surveillance on CCP officials to sweep away the monopolistic power of the red second-generation families in the banking and financial systems. This is to strip these families of the economic power to challenge Xi Jinping politically. At the same time, it's also to gather evidence of their corruption and embezzlement. Prior to the National Day reception, Cai Qi, head of the CCP Central Committee's secretariat, and Li Xin, secretary of the CCP's Discipline Inspection Commission, were ordered by Xi Jinping to visit and talk to Wen Jiabao, Li Ruihuan, and Zeng Qinghong, former vice president of China. Cai Qi and Li Xi presented Wen Jiabao with materials about his wife and son's economic crimes. They showed Li Ruihuan materials about his brother's economic crimes in Tianjin, and Zeng Qinghong revelations about his brother's economic crimes both at home and abroad. Cai Qi and Li Xi demanded that Wen Jiabao, Li Ruihuan, and Zeng Qinghong cooperate with the Party Central Committee and Xi Jinping to stabilize the current political situation. They were asked to join Xi Jinping in facing the challenges he mentioned at the National Day reception, prepared for high winds and rough waves or even shocking waves. They also want them not to engage in political activities with other red second-generation families to challenge Xi's authority. So, this is the truth about Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan attending the reception. On the economic front, the so-called stimulus package announced by the CCP has made some people, including the overseas investment community, quite excited. However, in essence, it's just the central bank printing more money for the Ministry of Finance to use. Banks can even lend money to companies or financial firms to speculate in stocks or buy back their own shares. And once the Ministry of Finance gets money from the central bank, the main expenditure goes toward continuing large-scale infrastructure projects, supporting real estate companies and helping them finish incomplete buildings, among other things. Anyone with a little bit of common sense will probably shake his head when he hears about these measures. However, many retail investors in China's stock market who are used to believing in the government's ability to manipulate the stock market lost their minds when the stock market rose wildly and rushed in frantically in the hope of making a profit. The result? After the so-called National Day holiday, the stock market immediately began to fall. It is estimated that in this round of frantic upward and downward movement, institutions and the main market forces were selling, while small retail investors suffered a net loss of 2 trillion yuan or 280 billion US dollars. Some say that the CCP has once again crazily harvested a crop of leaks. Chinese netizens refer to Chinese people as leeks that can be repeatedly harvested. Does the CCP really want to make the economic better? I don't think so. As early as last September, more than a year ago, I did a video discussing in detail the huge fiscal crisis that the CCP was about to encounter. It was not difficult to predict that the CCP would encounter a fiscal and debt crisis. One only needed to count the various bonds issued by the CCP over the years to know how great the pressure of debt repayment would be, and then compare it with the fiscal revenue and expenditure. Then one would immediately know how big the fiscal deficit would be. An ordinary macroeconomics can calculate the result with a little bit of hard work. So why did so many experts in the CCP fail to provide early warnings? So there's only one answer, and that is Xi Jinping doesn't care about the economy at all. This is consistent with the news coming out from within the CCP. According to Yuan Hongbin, Xi Jinping's major shift on economic issues is just a temporary measure. He has asked the State Council and other economic departments to ensure that the economy remains relatively stable until 2027 and that no catastrophic worsening should occur. So the so-called stimulus measures by the CCP are just to temporarily stabilize the economy before any potential invasion of Taiwan. At this moment, I've realized something important. By having Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan sit next to him, Xi Jinping might be trying to mislead the international community and the Chinese people. He wants them to wrongly believe that he is considering relaxing his control. If people start believing in this illusion, they might stop resisting, giving Xi Jinping more time to pursue his actual goals. Do you agree? On the international military strategic front, Xi Jinping has once again instructed the CCP's Central Military Commission to enhance military cooperation with Russia, including joint military exercises. According to insiders within the CCP, the Chinese military has signed a secret agreement with Russia. Under this secret agreement, the Russian military will help the Chinese Navy disguised as Coast Guard and research vessels to regularly enter the Arctic region to collect hydrographic data. This assistance is crucial for Chinese strategic nuclear submarines to navigate and position themselves in the Arctic for launching strategic nuclear missiles toward the US. The deployment of Chinese strategic nuclear submarines in the Arctic to secure the most effective position for launching nuclear missiles at the US is a key part of the CCP's overall war preparations. Additionally, the CCP has accelerated the supply of arms and other military materials to Russia via North Korea. Moreover, the CCP is providing basic military equipment for 100,000 North Korean special forces who are preparing to potential covert operations in Russia. Yuan Hongbin also revealed that the Chinese military is speeding up its delivery of weapons and financial support to international terrorist groups in the Middle East. The main recipients are Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthi rebels in Yemen, who control key maritime choke points. Since Israel has dealt a heavy destructive blow to Hamas, the CCP has temporarily halted its support to Hamas. The CCP continues to back international terrorist forces in the Middle East because it aims to keep the U.S. military engaged and focused there. This strategy is intended to distract the U.S. from paying attention to the Asia-Pacific region or the Taiwan Strait. On the international politics front, following Xi Jinping's directive, the CCP established a temporary secret agency 3 months ago that crosses the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the United Front Work Department. This agency, named the American Politics Watch, is co-led by Foreign Minister Wang Yi and United Front Work Department Minister Shi Taifeng. This temporary secret agency was specifically set up for the U.S. 2024 election. Its main task is to use information warfare, public opinion warfare, and cognitive warfare to take advantage of the U.S. election to deepen ideological divisions in American society, amplify political and racial tensions, and cause social unrest similar to what followed the last U.S. election. This aims to significantly weaken America's will and political capacity to focus on or intervene in a war in the Taiwan Strait. To sum up, Yuan Hongbin believes that Xi Jinping's latest moves in politics, economics, and military diplomacy indicate that Xi plans to launch an invasion of Taiwan between 2025 and 2027. Clearly, Xi Jinping is attempting to solve his endgame problems through a desperate final gamble. More precisely, Xi Jinping has made a strategic decision to engage in a century-defining showdown with the free world in the Taiwan Strait. If the international community fails to respond correctly and promptly, the disaster of a Taiwan Strait war will be hard to avoid. Moreover, the tension on the Korean Peninsula could also be part of a coordinated strategy involving the CCP, North Korea, and Russia. These dictators thrive on chaos. Only by stirring up global disorder do they see their opportunity. Mao Zedong, whom Xi Jinping admires most, famously said that great chaos leads to great order. So, world, are you ready? Well, that's all for today. Please like this video and subscribe for more. Please also visit my website at jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation. Your support helps me continue sharing the inconvenient truths. Thank you. See you next time.